Frankie, it's a true honor to sit with you.
As long as you understand that you're not doing it for you, and you're doing it for an audience who may be out there waiting to hear you or bought a ticket or waited 6 months until you appeared in your place. So that's what keeps it fresh. I've been doing this since I was about 16 or 17. Can you imagine what it's like to have an audience your whole life?
No, I can't.
Doing what you love and them loving what you're doing. Anybody who could stay with you and be a fan for as long as some of these people have been deserves to get as close to you as they could possibly get when they can.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is May 5th, 2025. That's right. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everyone, which is a good reminder that we officially have a Rubin Report en Español channel. Can we put a link to it somewhere? We're going to put a link in the description of this episode. So if you have friends whose native language is Espanol, they can watch the actual program. It's incredible. It's through AI. It goes up right after we do this, and it's the full show in Spanish. That, of course, what you saw in the cold open right there was my sit down with the legendary, now 91-year-old Frankie Valli, of course, of Frankie Valli, and the Four Seasons. We shot that about 3-4 weeks ago in Fort Myers. It was his 91st birthday on Saturday. So we just put up, it's a little mini film around the interview and just my love of the music and going to the concert and all that. And if you haven't seen it, you can check it out. It's up on YouTube and Rumble. And it was really just, I get to interview presidents and prime ministers and politicians and actors and comedians and all these things. But you get a couple, I guess, in life that just have some extra meaning to you for somebody that has just brought so much joy into my home and into my life and into literally millions of other people. So I just absolutely loved it. There was also something about interviewing someone of that age that's been around, doing this for literally over 60 years. His first hit was Sherry, 1962, and just to see the longevity of it and then go to the concert that night and have great-grandparents with grandparents and then their kids and grandchildren there. It was just awesome. So if you haven't checked it out, please do. And now we dive into what's happening in the world. We're going to start off with some Mondays with Maher clips because Bill is still kind of getting it while not kind of getting it. We're going to talk about deportations. This Ábrego García guy, turned out he was a human trafficker. The Democrats love him. He's a human trafficker. We're also defunding NPR and PBS. Where will crazy libs get their news? We've got a little something about big balls, and then we'll finish on a positive note for this. No, I'm not talking about myself. There was someone in Doge named Big Balls. We'll explain all of that and more on this episode of the Rubin Report. But let's dive in with Mondays with Maher. It's Mondays with Maher and McCarthy, actually, because former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy went on Real Time with Bill Maher on Friday night. And they talked a bit about something that we've been talking a lot about for the last 2 weeks, especially, just sort of the craziness of the Democrat Party right now, that you've got like the wacky radical wing, which is AOC and the Squad and Bernie and fight the oligarchs while we fly on our private planes and America's horrible and you're all racist. And then you have these like scared of their own shadow, few remaining half-decent liberals that don't know which way is up and which way is down. And so Bill and Kevin got into it over where the energy is and what the future of the Democrat Party looks like.
They gamed the system. They changed it.
And who do you see on the horizon for 2028 in the Democratic primary?
Right now?
Yeah.
Bernie and AOC.
No.
They got the biggest crowds.
That doesn't matter.
It won't sustain itself, but right now they have no leader. Okay? But this is the thing the Republican Party has to understand, too. Both parties lost in the last election. Trump won, okay? And I don't know if that's going to transfer. We should have won 4 more seats in the Senate. If you looked at the last 70 races for the Senate, 69 follow exactly the way.
I think it's
I'm just saying who's in the lead right now. I don't think that's how it ends up.
But big crowds don't necessarily mean who's the right candidate. When I started
but it drives where the ideas are going to go. It's going to drive the money for a while.
It doesn't make them the winner.
It doesn't make them the winner. You'll have to wait till you'll get 2 years out, And then you'll start seeing these governors that start showing solutions. You also have to know, what is the issue going to be? Are we going to have a foreign policy issue? Are we going to have an economic issue? And who's been the best in leading in that? But right now for the Democrats, who's going to lead for the next 2 years, the money is going to... AOC outraised everybody in the House.
And it's all small donors.
It's all small donors.
Yeah.
And this is exactly where Trump was when no one gave him a chance at 17. He outraised everybody else. So that's where the base is at.
Yeah, that is just true. And Bill, as far as you've come and having dinner with Trump and all of that stuff, and telling your audience that he's not a maniac or any of those things, which, as always, I give you credit. It takes balls to do that in front of your own live studio audience and have some of your own base turn against you. Credit where credit is due, for sure. But of course, McCarthy is right about that. There are, whether we like it or not, right? Like, I think you know my feelings about it, but whether we like it or not, Bernie and AOC are drawing crowds. The energy, what the media focuses on, and this is partly a media problem, and maybe it's an online media problem too. Like, there's shiny things out there. Shiny things are them just saying crazy things all the time. So we all cover it. If your argument, Bill, would be, oh, but big crowds don't mean anything, then there has to be a counter to it. There has to be like 4 or 5 other people elsewhere who are making sensible arguments, so you could point to them on the Democrat side and say, well, no, okay, they're fighting the oligarchy and they think America is systemically racist and they like democratic socialism, which is really just socialism or slow motion communism. There's all of that. But look, we've got these 5 guys here and they're pretty decent and they have a sensible track record and they're good old school liberals and blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, Bill has no one to point to because there is nobody left because, as you know, Bobby Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, et cetera, those people are now moderate Republicans. That's just how it is. Now, interestingly, one of the challenges that Bill is having, and this is just, I think this is, it's bigger than Bill. You know, when I do these shows about Bill and people say, Dave, you're too focused on Bill, it's bigger than him because it's this battle between whatever's left of liberalism, let's say, true, authentic liberalism, and the radicals that are just trying to hijack, because they're not just trying to hijack the Democrat Party. That's just part one. Then you would try to hijack the entire country. And they will look, you got to give them credit. They may all be idiots and hysterical children and everything else, but they've destroyed our institutions. They've wrecked so much. So this is where I just want to keep encouraging Bill. Don't worry about Trump. However, I do think he feels that he has to do that every now and again. And here's McCarthy trying to calm him down about Trump and the economy.
Goldman Sachs says we will experience the lowest economic growth and the highest inflation of any big boy country in 2025, even empty seats at Beyonce's concert. Wow. I guess what I'm asking is, Kevin, so everybody knows something except Trump, or is it the other way around? We're all wrong and he's got it right?
We're not all wrong, but this is the point, a couple things you didn't mention. This is a stock market up for the first time 9 straight days. That's only happened 8 times in the last 25 years.
Up from where it was way down.
But you haven't been every single day for 9 straight days. That's only happened 31 times in 97 years.
And why did that happen, I'm asking?
Well, I think we've gotten over that we know the tariffs are a negotiation. It's not going to stay this way. I think people are seeing the investment coming back. You look at the jobs numbers today, it surpassed the second time. And if you read into the job numbers,
yeah, jobs
9,000 jobs were cut in government, but the private sector has grown. So he's doing a disruption, but you're seeing kind of a little light at the end of the tunnel. Now, if they get in the next 60 days a couple trade agreements, I think you're going to see this market take off.
Yeah, so you can see Bill is bringing up, okay, people are saying there's going to be more inflation or the economy is going to be stagnant or whatever. It's like we had inflation under Biden, right? They did something called the Inflation Reduction Act. And what did they do? They printed money, and it's a basic supply and demand thing. If you just print something out of nowhere, you're basically going to devalue the dollar. And that's what they did. We're not doing that anymore. Everything McCarthy said there was right. And it's what I've been saying for months, that the tariffs were a negotiation tactic. So there was a 2-day situation where the economy did tank. And subsequently, the markets are opening this morning. It's Monday morning. They shot that on Friday. 9 straight days of growth. The markets, the stock market has basically come completely back. Basically completely back. We also, as he pointed out, we've cut government jobs, cut government waste, and now private sector is making up for some of that stuff. So there's just good markers here. But I would say even if you don't believe any of that. The fact is, what Donald Trump is doing is exactly what he ran on, which is we are going to fix these trade agreements. There's going to be a little pain point. And by the way, if we're in the middle of the pain point right now, Trump, I saw a video, we're not showing it today, but I saw something this morning, maybe we'll get to it tomorrow, where he's saying they're already, we're negotiating with these 70 some odd countries. They already have deals back. They just haven't announced them yet, right? So if all of these deals come back in the next couple of weeks and they land pretty well, relatively well, then we'll be on the other side. And the worst pain point we would have had would have been the market dropping 2 weeks ago. Some people lost some money, including me, but then we had these 9 days of growth and we're back. So again, it was promised. They warned us that there was going to be some weirdness. We got there pretty good. We also, by the way, fixed the border, and it wasn't hard to do, and we didn't need a bipartisan deal to do it. Here's crypto and AI czar and co-host of the All In podcast, David Sachs, talking about that.
Well, I would highlight three main areas that I think are big accomplishments for the Trump administration in the first 100 days. So number one has to be the border. Like Jamas said, I think you have to give the administration an A+ on this. They've completely stopped the border crisis. I think we all knew that Trump would take action on this because it's one of the main issues he campaigned on. But I think if you had asked any of us, 4 months ago, would this problem be completely solved, meaning border apprehensions completely stopped, border completely sealed within the first 100 days, I don't think we would have believed necessarily that it would get done so quickly, but it has. Recall that for 4 years during the Biden years, we were told for the first 3 years that the problem didn't even exist. Whenever the videos were published of caravans coming or throngs of people running across the border, we were told that these were cherry-picked videos on Fox News. It wasn't real. Finally, in the last year of the Biden administration, they said, okay, we're finally going to do something about it. They took some limited actions. And they said that doing more than that would require new legislation. Well, all of that was just gaslighting, it turns out. Trump came in, he restored Remain in Mexico and other policies, completely stopped it. He had this line at the State of the Union, which I think is exactly right, which is we didn't need a new law, we just needed a new president.
I told you guys last week we're working on a little chart where we'll have movable heads that we'll put in the chart, which will be just basically ordering the top 10 people in the Trump administration. And Sachs is high up there right now because, yes, he's explaining things in a very calm and clean way that are all true, right? Not only did we do it, even the most bullish person on Trump, picture the most Trumpy Trumpster in Trump Town. You think if you got that person with a lie detector on, do you think they would have been like, boy, Trump can absolutely 100% seal the border in 100 days? Even that person might be like, oh, that is a kind of tall order, but we did it. There are basically no illegals coming through right now. There's got to be somewhere, right? There's got to be some hole in a wall somewhere someone's getting through. But basically, by any way we can actually measure these things, and there's no perfect system, we did it. And then, of course, what he said in the second part of that was completely right. For 3 years, we were told it wasn't happening, right? We were showing those videos here. Fox was always doing a good job with that. Bill Maher out there, they were doing a nice job. But mainstream media told us it was not a problem. We were all making it up because we're racist. And then what happened? It was definitely linked to that moment 2 years ago when Bobby Kennedy went to the border at Arizona and saw dozens, it was probably hundreds of people walking by him, and he started asking them where they were from, and they were from all these other countries. That video, because he was a Democrat admitting that he was standing there going, I didn't realize this was a problem. And then suddenly it started bursting forth, and then what happened about a year ago? It was the meme that, oh, we just need a bipartisan bill. What did I and many others tell you the entire time? No, you don't. You don't. We have all the laws in place, and one of the few things the president's supposed to do is take care of the border. So we did not need it. It was a complete lie. As Trump said a couple weeks ago, we didn't need a bipartisan bill. We needed a president who was functioning. Here's a bit more on that. He sat down with NBC's Kristen Welker, and they talked about the success at the border.
Border crossings are at their lowest level ever recorded. Is the border,
is that good?
Is the border now secure?
Yeah, it's really secure.
It's absolutely
isn't that good?
secure.
When you say that, doesn't that just sound good? After being abused for years by an incompetent president that allowed people to pour through an open border, criminals from all over the world, murderers and insane people from mental institutions and insane asylums. Isn't it a beautiful thing when you say it's the most secure it's ever been in the history of our country? Isn't that a nice thing?
Yeah, it is a nice statement. And guess what? It was just because we had to have the will to do it. Remember, Donald Trump came into office back in 2016, signed a whole bunch of things that closed the border. We did a pretty good job of it. Then things went wacky with COVID. Then Biden purposely, on day one, undid it. I always think it's 67 executive actions that he reversed as it pertained to the border. They lied about what was happening. They told us it wasn't happening. And then, of course, they told us we needed some comprehensive immigration bill, that we were going to have to get all the senators together, and they were going to have to give us a comprehensive border bill to do the very thing that somehow magically Donald Trump did about 103 days ago. You may remember Kamala on that.
We are very clear, and I think most Americans are clear, that we have a broken immigration system and we need to fix it. Members of the United States Senate, those considered to be very conservative, with others, came to a bipartisan resolution, but they're refusing to put it up for a vote. And in large part because we know the former president would prefer to run on a problem instead of fix a problem.
That woman should never be anywhere near public office again, just for that alone. It was a complete gaslighting lie. It was not necessary. She knew it was not necessary. Her boss, the man that was pretending to be president, Joe Biden, that she booted out with her soft coup, could have stopped it, and did not stop it. Now, the other piece of this that is the part that I really love, because I love the media analysis around all of these things, is that why did this all happen? Well, it's thankfully because of the online media, right? The mainstream media, again, I give Fox credit on this, but everyone else was telling us it wasn't a problem, or they were ignoring it, or telling us we needed a solution that we didn't need, et cetera, et cetera. But what happened? Well, I mentioned that Bobby video, and where did that go viral? Of course, it was on X. So here's Elon talking about how once he got Twitter/X, we were able to see things that we kind of thought were there, and we could see them, and then we could really see how the mainstream media was hiding reality from us.
And then once we unlocked Twitter from being censored, then we started to see what was really going on. And I became increasingly concerned. I'm like, wait a second, I'm seeing videos of people streaming across the border on Twitter, now X. I'm like, and I was like, is this real? So I said, well, I'll go to the border myself. So I went to Eagle Pass, Texas, and sure enough, people streaming across the border. And I was like, so is there any vetting of these people? Like, no, the Biden administration is letting them all in. And I said, well, but some of these people clearly have criminal affiliations. Like they literally have the criminal affiliation tattooed on their face. The left is kind to the criminals and cruel to the victims.
Yeah, I love that line, right? Like that is just so right. That's that shell game. They're always telling you the good guys are the bad guys are the good guys. For some reason, the Democrats are never worried about you, the legal, law-abiding citizen of the United States. They're always worried about the bad guys. One of those bad guys is an illegal El Salvadorian immigrant whose wife accused him of beating her a couple times, including with a boot, who also had the MS-13 gang symbols. He didn't have the laminated card, but he had the symbols on his fingers that spelled out MS-13. Bad dude. Turns out that he was also involved in human trafficking. Yes, I'm talking about Ábrego García, who is the hero of the Democrats, probably will be their VP nominee if they can get him back into the country by the end of the year. We'll have that in a second, but first, Lumen. Are you trying to lose fat but still not seeing the results you wanted? The reason why might surprise you. It most likely has to do with your metabolic flexibility. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. With just one breath first thing in the morning, Lumen can measure your metabolism. It lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and stress management. No more cookie-cutter, one-size-fits-all nutritional plans. Lumen lets you know what's happening in your body in real time and then builds you a personalized health plan based on your real-time data. So if you want to take the next step to a fitter, healthier version of you, go to lumen.me/Rubin or just click the link below and you'll get 15% off your Lumen. All right, so obviously the wackiest story of the last month has been this ridiculous insanity of Maryland man, that's what they call him in the mainstream media, Maryland man Kilmar Ábrego García, who was here on a green card, who was beating his wife by her own reports, including with the boot, who was then taken and sent back to his home country, El Salvador, and then several of our senators and congresspeople went to El Salvador to try to somehow bring back a man from El Salvador who's legally back in his home country and bring him illegally back into the United States. He is the big hero of this Democrat Party that has gone completely insane. Well, it also turns out that he's a human trafficker. This broke on Friday night on Jesse Waters' show on Fox News. Here he is, and well, you know, you Dems, you know how to pick them.
Van Hollen changed his tune because every day another shoe drops on the Maryland dad. He was a suspect in a human trafficking operation dating back 3 years. And Fox Digital just got their hands on the body cam. But you're seeing it here first. Tennessee Highway Patrol stopped Kilmar for speeding and noticed he had 8 other people in the car. All no luggage. Take a look.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Good, and you?
All right.
What, excuse me?
Whose car is it?
It's to my boss.
Your boss?
My boss, yeah.
Where's he live? Where's your boss live?
My boss right now is staying in Maryland, but he lives in Texas.
Okay.
In Houston, Texas.
Lives in Maryland, Houston, Texas, boss car, 8 people. There were actually extra seats that had been put into the car, no luggage. So we will find out more about this. But when you throw that little nugget in, and the wife being beaten with the boot, and the tattoos, perhaps Democrats, even though I want you people, I want your party to completely burn. That's what has to happen, right? And maybe a phoenix can rise from the ashes, perhaps. Not that we need that even, actually. But if just a little hint would be, get off this guy's nut. This is not working for you. It was obvious, and it's only going to get worse. But since Democrats aren't that bright, they're all in with this guy. Here is Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. And now he doesn't want people to vacation in El Salvador. El Salvador, perhaps the most safe country in the entire world at this point. But you shouldn't go there because they got one of their citizens back or something like that.
In addition to this resolution, I've called upon all Americans who care about their due process rights to vote with their feet. Don't go to El Salvador as tourists so long as the government of El Salvador is violating the constitutional rights of people who reside in America. There are lots of other nice countries in the region like Costa Rica or Guatemala or others. And finally, stay tuned because Senator Kaine and I, along with Senator Schumer and others, are planning to also introduce sanctions legislation targeting President Bukele and all those who are part of his government conspiring with Donald Trump to deprive residents of the United States of their constitutional rights. And thank all of you for being here. And again, thanks to my friend Tim Kaine for all his leadership on this and so many issues.
All right, sorry guys, I totally checked out of that clip because I just realized, you know what I'm going to do for this whole team? I'm taking the entire Rubin Report team. We're going to take a 3-day weekend. It's a 2-hour flight. Is that right? It's only a 2-hour flight? That's crazy from Miami. I'm going to take the whole team. We're going to take a Friday off. We're going to do a 3-day operation in El Salvador. Just hang out on the beach, drink margaritas, go surfing, I don't know, whatever the high hell you want to do, because that schmuck does not want us to go there and wants to harm the economy of El Salvador. I'm with you, Bukele. We're not even going to do work. We're not doing work. You're not bringing your computers or anything. We're just going to have a good old time. We're going to eat, what do they eat? Those little pocket, what do they eat? No, it's a little pocket thing. It's like an empanada, but what do they call it? What's the El Salvadorian empanada? A papusa. It's a papusa, which they all eat. And then they get like a little belly like this, which then they call that the papusa. We'll limit the papusas. We're going to go on the beach. We're going to have a great time. And that will be in honor of you, Van Houten, whatever the hell your name is. Over on CNN, Scott Jennings, who apparently may be running for senator from Kentucky or might be joining the Trump administration or something, but you know, he's just doing a bang-up job smacking around these fools around the table over there. Here he is, just once again, further explaining in simple layman terms that perhaps we are doing the right thing at the border and we shouldn't allow terrorists in, and the guy with the boot and the whole thing. Here you go.
if another group of people, say not illegal aliens, but just some other group from somewhere else, actually came to the shores of the United States, not a nation, but say a group, any kind of group, and actually did come ashore and try to invade, I don't know what else you would call it, the United States, would you run to court and ask a federal judge if the President of the United States can we defend the nation now?
But that's
can
not
we
what,
stop
that's
the?
not what we're talking
It
about.
is. They're coming across.
You were also generalizing here. You were talking about. Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you, Scott.
But what's the difference?
What's
the difference? There will be a declaration of war, and then the act would
if there are gang members and if they're killing or raping women in this country, they should absolutely be deported, and there should be deportation orders, and there should be a process, and there is a process to deport them. You are saying that every person that is here illegally is raping people, and that is not true. You're saying they're all part of these gangs. They're invading our country.
You see why I call it Scott and the retards? Because that woman is a retard. Scott did not say that they are all rapists or murderers or anything else. He made a point that there are some that are murderers and rapists, but if you are illegal, you have broken the law. I know that that's very hard for Democrats to get into their brain. There's something blocking that in their brain, right? There's some kind of filament there and they just can't bust through that thing. But if you are illegal, that means not legal. And if something's not legal, it's illegal. That worked, right? That kind of worked. That made some sense. So, lady, you just don't get it. You just don't get it. And by the way, you guys don't care when people get raped and murdered and when they bring fentanyl and everything else, because you don't say jack shit about that. The only time you get on TV and complain about anything is when the good guys actually start taking care of peaceful, America-loving citizens. That's what you hate. Donald Trump, though, I mentioned David Sachs before, we're going to put up this list, this top 10 Trump peeps list. We're going to start doing that. And there's something flying around my head right now. Can we get do we have the electrocution machine? We're going to get the electric zapper. It's Florida. We're rolling into the summer. He's got, we're going to put this 10 people together list of the top Trump people, the top 10 Trump people. Stephen Miller, definitely up there. Here he is just blowing apart this whole Ábrego Garcia story.
Most of your papers never covered her story when it happened. To the extent that you covered it at all, it was because President Trump forced you to cover it by highlighting it repeatedly over and over again. He had to shame you into covering it. And each and every one of you that sides over and over again with these MS-13 terrorists, to the extent that you have the financial means to do so, you all choose to live in condos or homes or houses as far away from these kinds of gangbangers as you possibly can. If I offered any one of you a rent-free home with no taxes to pay in any of these gang neighborhoods, and I said your neighbors are MS-13 terrorists or Mexican mafia or Sinaloa cartel or Tren de Aragua, I couldn't pay you to live there. But yet you, with your coverage, are trying to force innocent Americans to have these people as their neighbors, and that one day their daughter may be abducted from their home and raped and murdered. So you're not going to get an ounce of sympathy from this administration or President Trump for the terrorists who've invaded our homes and our country.
He's really right. I mean, that's completely right. When I'm always telling you they're making you look at the wrong thing, like they don't care because they never cover the stories when these people do these horrible things. We force them to, right? They didn't care when all these people were pouring through. And by the way, when you're letting hundreds of thousands and millions of people into your country without vetting them, you don't know. You don't know who's going to be the rapist or the murderer or the fentanyl dealer. So do you want to wait until the rape or the murder or the fentanyl deal? So unless you want to do that, no, you just have to find some way to start getting rid of people. It's not to be a dick. It's just to have a country or not have a country. Also, when a bug gets in your studio and you're doing a live program on the computer, you should have an electric racket so you can zap that thing. It's fired up, it's charged, it's ready to go, and if that thing gets on me, we're going to take it out. Interestingly, it's not just rapes and murders that are the problem. Fentanyl. Every now and again, you're going to get a story that comes across the desk that you go, this can't be real. And yet it is real. And by the way, it's not just women that are the victim sometimes of these rapes. I'm just going to read this story to you and, make of it what you will. This is from Charlie Kirk. Per the NYPD, Felix Rojas found a dead or dying father on the New York subway. Rather than administer first aid or call for help, Rojas allegedly robbed him, then returned to spend 30 minutes raping his corpse. In a completely unsurprising twist, Rojas is an illegal immigrant who was repeatedly caught crossing the U.S.-Mexico border, but kept returning until he finally got through unscathed. Once inside America, he was, of course, treated as a sacrosanct and allowed to roam free. Now hundreds of thousands of dollars will be spent offering Rojas legal defense. Why? Because for the left, Felix Rojas is the perfect symbol. They want the criminal trash of the third world to do to America what Rojas did to that corpse. So I want you to just leave the picture up for a moment. Just get that guy in your face for just a second. So that's an illegal, booted out many times, kept coming back, okay, fine. Sees someone dead or dying on a subway, steals something from him. Let's say we can kind of jump that far mentally, that he's just like a general criminal thug. Okay, fine. Under what circumstance would you then rape the dead body? Male, female, or anything else? Like, how hard up do you have to be? I don't even want to make jokes about this. Like, do you see what's going on here? They don't care about that. So when that woman that was with Scott, when she's like, well, it's not just the criminals. We don't know. Would you prefer that we wait until they're raping grandpa? You people would, but we have had more than enough of you, which is why we are reopening Alcatraz. We'll have more on that in a second, but first, home title lock.
Attention homeowners, your property could be at risk and you need to hear this. When was the last time you checked your home title, the legal document proving you own your house? If you're like most people, including me, the answer is probably never. In today's world of advanced AI and cybercrime, scammers are targeting homeowners like you, stealing home titles and putting your hard-earned equity in jeopardy. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on just one document, use a fake notary stamp, and pay a small fee to your county office. Just like that, boom, your home title is transferred out of your name. Stop what you're doing and visit HometitleLock.com, where you can use promo code Rubin to check your title status. Plus, with this exclusive offer, you'll receive a free title history report and a free 14-day trial of their powerful $1 million triple lock protection. Once again, go to HometitleLock.com and enter promo code Rubin to get started.
All right, so when you're bringing the drugs in and you're raping the chicks and you're murdering people and, I don't know, banging a dead corpse of a guy on the subway, we just don't want you to do that anymore here. And we're going to have to send you somewhere. And a lot of you are going to be sent to these prisons that are in El Salvador right now, that Bukele has cleaned up his country and is now helping us clean up our country. But we are going to do some of it right here. Listen to this from Donald Trump over the weekend. Rebuild and open Alcatraz. For too long, America has been plagued by vicious, violent, and repeat criminal offenders, the dregs of society who will never contribute anything other than misery and suffering. When we were a more serious nation in times past, we did not hesitate to lock up the most dangerous criminals and keep them far away from anyone they could. That's the way it's supposed to be. No longer will we tolerate these serial offenders who spread filth, bloodshed, and mayhem on our streets. That is why today I am directing the Bureau of Prisons, together with the Department of Justice, FBI, and Homeland Security, to reopen a substantially enlarged and rebuilt Alcatraz to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders. We will no longer be held hostage to criminals, thugs, and judges who are afraid to do their job and allow us to remove criminals who came into our country illegally. The reopening of Alcatraz will serve as a symbol of law, order, and justice. We will make America great again. And you can see a picture of Alcatraz right there. And yeah, so it's been empty for a while. It looks like we are going to open it again. Trump then put up a picture of it with no context. He didn't add any text to that, but that is Alcatraz Island. For those of you of a certain age, you might have seen The Rock with Nick Cage, and a lot of things were happening on Alcatraz. Great movie. Ed Harris, very conflicted former Navy guy who's turning against the Navy, wasn't really a bad guy, has a little comeuppance right at the end of the movie. And what's his name? The British guy, 007, the British guy. No, not who was the original? Sean Connery. He was in it too. Great movie. Michael Bay, before the Transformers blew his brains apart. Anyway, yes, it's like, again, we can start doing things. We can build a border. We can put criminals in jail. We can make sure that things are safe for you to raise a family and prosper and pursue happiness and all of those things. And ironically, This is the most ironic clip of the day. Back in May of 2024, it was Whoopi Goldberg herself on The View who was thinking about, fantasizing, let's say, about opening Alcatraz once again, and you're not going to believe who she wanted to put there.
And so I think to make a point, to prove a point, put him in the clink. Oh, why not? Put him in the clink.
Okay. I don't want this to sound like I'm doing wishful thinking.
Yes.
But which prison would be best? I know which one. I'm going to give you, Michael. Well, that's what I asked. Number one is Rikers. But, you know, I'm okay if he goes to Alcatraz and they reopen it.
Maybe.
You know, what about Guantanamo Bay? Okay?
Yeah. Well, that'd be close to Mar-a-Lago. Melania can come and visit.
That's right. What about Supermax? Supermax would be interesting. El Chapo was in Supermax. Now he wants to be with the hip people. Come on.
Yeah.
All right, look, I get she's being sarcastic and everything else, but like in some sense, it's also not, right? Because had Donald Trump at that time, that's a year ago right now, at that time, Donald Trump could have ended up in jail. It was only 2 months before they tried to shoot him. But yes, she's being tongue-in-cheek in some sense. But okay, good. We are going to open up the prisons again. Maybe we should open up the mental institutions again. Like, we should start caring about the good people. Stop caring about the bad guys and care about the good people. We have one party that seems to be doing that, and one party that's just going down the other way. And we will have more of all of that to the backdrop of, should we fund the very institutions that are destroying us? I don't think so. But first, CB Distillery. If you're tossing and turning at night or feeling on edge during the day, it might be time to try CBD from CB Distillery. Millions have already made the switch because it works. In fact, over 90% of customers report better sleep with CBD, but it's not just for sleep. CB Distillery has targeted formulas for stress, mood, focus, post-workout pain, and even CBD for pets. All made with clean premium ingredients, no fillers, no junk. With over 2 million happy customers and 100% money-back guarantee, CB Distillery is the name to trust. And right now you can save 25% off your entire purchase. Just go to cbdistillery.com and use promo code Rubin. That's cbdistillery.com, promo code Rubin. All right, before we move on, I had Joseph just quickly check. Can we get a nice luxury house in El Salvador on the beach? Let's see what we've got here. Look at that. Yeah. Perfect. Done. 12 guests, 5 bedrooms, 7 baths, 5.5 baths. Beautiful. All right, that's it. What do you say, $1,400 a night? Yep. 3 nights, Rubin Report team, spiral staircase. Anything else? I think we could do that. That would be all right. Why am I bringing you people? We're going to do it. We're just spending 3 days. Suck it, Van Houten, Van Hollen, whatever the hell your name is. The other thing that Trump's doing, he's doing a lot. The other thing is that he is defunding NPR and PBS. You might have made an argument a couple decades ago, before the internet and everything else, that we needed something close to some sort of public broadcast system, right? That you wanted something that the government, it's not an argument I'm making, but I could see how back then you would make the argument the government should set aside a certain amount of money so there would be a public broadcast system that would be largely nonpartisan, that could just give people straight up news as opposed to, this is coming from the left, this is coming to the right, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, in the last 20 plus years of the internet, there is just no reason for it. And in some sense, if you really think about it, the idea that the government would take your money to create something that would be nonpartisan is kind of crazy, right? Like, it doesn't really even make sense in and of itself. Like, the government will create something that will be for freedom. It doesn't quite work, but okay, fine. But yes, it's going away, both of them. This from Benny Johnson. President Trump signs an executive order cutting off taxpayer funding for NPR and PBS. A man who looks like a potato, who was fired over at CNN and then brought back because, I don't know why, Brian Stelter, of course, he's very upset that Trump is getting rid of PBS and NPR.
What do we make of this?
I brought props with you
I
today,
love a
Dana.
prop.
I went ahead and read the entire law for you, the 1967 Public Broadcasting Act. There is nothing in this law that gives any president the ability to strip away the funding for PBS and NPR. Congress was really specific back 50 plus years ago. They wanted to create an entity that was free of government control. They wanted to make sure no president could ever pressure PBS or NPR. So this is going to be a legal fight like so many others that we've seen. And I suspect President Trump probably wants it that way.
All right, Stelter, I'm not even going to bother. Look, they'll fight it out. You want them to fight it out? Can he do this by an executive action or not? Okay, let them fight it out. But again, this is just another one of those 80-20 issues. Nobody thinks that NPR or PBS are nonpartisan. Very few people, except you guys, you hacks, think that they are offering a valuable public service at this point, right? Like people just don't think that anymore, and it's true. And we need only listen to the people who have been running NPR and PBS for years. We've shown you this video a couple months ago, but NPR CEO Catherine Maher, as far as I know, no relation to Bill Maher, listen to her when she's talking about what is her, now she's the head of the public broadcast system that's paid for by the government, by you. Listen to her number one problem over there.
The number one challenge here that we see and is, of course, the First Amendment in the United States is a fairly robust protection of rights. And that is a protection of rights both for platforms, which I actually think is very important, that platforms have those rights to be able to regulate what kind of content they want on their sites. But it also means that it is a little bit tricky to really address some of the real challenges of where does bad information come from and sort of the influence peddlers who have made a real market economy around.
So you get that? The lady who is paid for by the government seems to think that the biggest problem that she has is the robust protection of rights. The First Amendment is the first one, and that's the one she has the biggest problem with. Because, and then she's doing that slippery slope thing. Well, because there's people who peddle misinformation. Okay, there are people that peddle misinformation, and that can be dangerous, let's say. But often it's you guys that are peddling the misinformation, and you're only looking to take out a certain set of people that peddle, let's say, counter information, not really misinformation, right? I can only imagine we could probably spend the next 6 weeks doing it, like uncovering every bit of misinformation that NPR spread during COVID. You can only imagine that. But it's even worse than just sort of that she's upset with the robust defense of free speech that we have here in America. What she's really upset about is that some people care about the truth for the sake of truth. And when you're a propagandist, that's a real problem.
But one of the most significant differences, critical for moving from polarization to productivity, is that the Wikipedians who write these articles aren't actually focused on finding the truth. They're working for something that's a little bit more attainable, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years there, I actually believe that they're onto something. That for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become a bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
That is the most dystopian, like you want to understand why leftists kill so many people in their quest for utopia, why their quest for utopia becomes dystopia. That is it right there. She doesn't want you to have a deference to truth, right? Truth is the thing that's getting in the problem of more productivity. Do you realize how absolutely psychotic that is? Like, man, truth. There's nothing more honorable than the quest for truth. We've got liars every which way, everywhere, on all political sides, on all philosophical, religious sides, and everything else. Someone who's going for the truth is the problem in your equation? Man, and that's the woman who's been heading NPR. So the question is, do you think they deserve your money? I think it's a fairly obvious answer. Now, CNN, of course, which is also part of the machine. They don't want NPR and PBS to be defunded, even though you might argue they're somehow competition, but it's all part of the lie laundering machine, right? So they brought on Bill Nye, and he calls himself the science guy. We'll have a bit on why he's not particularly good when it comes to science in just a second. But here he is explaining that if we don't have PBS, that everyone's going to get pretty stupid.
You know, you've reached countless people through PBS over the years, fostering a love and an understanding for some of us of science. I wonder what you make of this news tonight.
Well, it's not good news for us. For it will be in modern terms, it will be unpopular, and so they'll find that a great many small communities rely on public broadcasting for weather information, for evacuation information, and so on. And then everybody who's a parent has raised their kids using public broadcasting children's programming. There's nothing like it. If you want to have this advanced military capability, this, for example, this Golden Dome, you're going to need people in the pipeline to come be engineers and physicists, scientists to build this extraordinary system. And those people are going to get their love of science from public broadcasting. So this is very well documented and so on. This is not in the national interest.
Yes, it's very well documented that you can only get the love of science through public broadcasting. You can only find out the weather through public broadcasting. You can only find out the evacuation route through public broadcasting. Bill, science guy Bill, have you heard of the internet? It's on all the time, and you probably have a phone or a computer, as does pretty much everyone else, with access to information. There are homeless people wandering around New York City that have iPhones, okay? And if you go, well, the homeless people don't have iPhones, they probably don't have access to PBS either. It's just completely absurd. And this is what these people that are defending institutions that are working against us. You think that really just think how absurd this is. If PBS and NPR disappear today, which they're going to lose their funding, and by the way, they can still exist if private people and nonprofits or whatever want to fund them, they will still exist. Of course they will still exist. But if there's no market for them, then why should we be paying for them to exist? On top of the fact that they've become hyper-partisan, and as we pointed out with Catherine Marr, they've become, I would say, radically, in some sense, anti-American. If your biggest problem is the First Amendment and you think truth is an obstruction to productivity, you are actually anti-American. But the notion that kids will not learn about science because NPR doesn't exist, it's like YouTube is free, and on YouTube you could watch videos of an actual guy who's interested in science and who actually builds things, not just spreads propaganda like you. His name's Elon Musk, and you could watch videos of how he's sending rockets to Mars or how he's helping literal paraplegics play chess with their mind. You could do that, Bill. There's other ways to inspire people. And to me, at the end of the day, if they just close the whole damn thing, and if Oscar the freaking Grouch had to live in a garbage can, would that be you see, because he already lives in you got it. But Bill Nye, he's not the best when it comes to science. I'm not a scientist. I don't have a bow tie. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure that means if you have a bow tie, you're a scientician. He's got a bow tie. That's why he's out there. Although here he is explaining that 3-year-olds can determine their own gender.
One thing's clear about sexuality. There's a lot more going on than meets the eye. Female or male, gay or straight, pink or blue. We were taught to see these as binary. Now we're realizing it's more like a kaleidoscope. And this stuff isn't just for adults. Parents know this already. Kids explore gender, expression, attraction before they've ever heard of a spectrum.
I'm sorry, he's just an effing idiot. Like, he's just an idiot. Sorry, dude. These things are different. Female and male are different. You are a female, okay? Right, like, you guys get it. No, are there some males, you are biologically male, and could you have same-sex attraction? Yes. Could you be biologically female and be into chicks? Yes. That is true. There is a difference between sexuality and gender. But if you are a male and you dress up as a woman and chop your wang off and get big tits and call yourself Mary, you're still a male. Sorry. That's how it is. But this is what they've done. They just break down brains. They wonder why everyone's depressed and pathetic and asexual and weird. And then they blame us mostly for all of it. But I thought this was great. This is a perfect example of why they want to censor the internet. To go back to that clip that Elon talked about earlier about how before he bought X, there was just no way of knowing what was true. We could not see what was happening. And then he opened it up so we could see it. So this is great. So this is a guy, David Brooks. He's a conservative, but he's just kind of like sort of like a never Trump machine, nothing kind of, but he's a PBS guy and a conservative on PBS. And here he is talking about how PBS is just straight down the line, but then you will see what the internet people did. And we actually showed you the second half of this last week. Enjoy.
If you think PBS is biased, compared to who? Name one news organization in America, and I shouldn't be defending us, I get paid by PBS, but I'm going to do it, who's more straight down the line than we are. There are a lot of people who are appalled by what the administration is doing. And there will be times for civil disobedience. And to me, let's say she did escort this guy out the door. If federal enforcement agencies come to your courtroom and you help a guy escape, that is two things. One, it strikes me as maybe something illegal, but it also strikes me as something heroic. And so you can both think that she shouldn't have legally done this and that morally protecting somebody against, or maybe not even in this case, but in other cases, frankly, a predatory enforcement agency.
Oh, that sounds really like right down the middle, doesn't it? Yeah, it's right down the middle. And I get paid by them, so I shouldn't say this, but I will anyway. And then, of course, what he's referencing is the story that we told you about last week, where this Wisconsin judge, ICE agents showed up because she had an illegal in her courtroom, and she ushered him out a different door. I got into this with Ro Khanna, whose answer I think was, let's say, slightly confused. But if you are here illegally, ICE is here to get you. And if a judge is going out of their way to hide you from ICE, so you're going out a side door and they're hiding you and obfuscating ICE's ability to do their job, yeah, you should be arrested and you probably shouldn't be a judge. But you tell me, does it seem like that guy is just playing it down the middle, average fella, or is he just like a lying, blowhard, fake conservative buffoon? I report, you decide. NPR also pays these people an awful lot. If you want to just see how much these people are getting, I mean, this is just a quick list. I won't read all of them, but the CEO gets about $550K a year. One of the senior hosts gets about $500. Another senior host gets about $450. And two of the other hosts are over $400. And then you got, they're just making a shit ton of cash. And by the way, guys, that's your money. So why is it that your dollars are being sent to them? If those people do valuable, let's say those people are all great people, they're great journalists, they're unbelievably talented people who can bring people information about evacuation routes that no one else can get to them, well then somebody out there with cash, one of you Soros big money lefties, pay for them to do it, because we ain't going to do it anymore. Now let's talk about giant balls, because a guy named Big Balls is working with Elon Musk over at Doge. And you might say, well, who is Big Balls? How did he get involved in Doge? What's he doing with Elon Musk? What the high hell's going on here? Well, Jesse Waters sat down. They've done a couple of these where Fox is sitting down with some of the Doge guys, because they've been lambasted and said, we're being told they're the worst people ever, and they're all racists and everything else. It's a bunch of people, you'll see at a giant table in a conference room here, that are qualified to do all sorts of things. Many of these people, some of them happen to be quite young, but some of them are, 40s, 50s, 60s. And they're cleaning out the waste of the government. One of them was named Big Balls. This got everybody on mainstream media to freak out and talk about Big Balls over and over and over again. Here's Jesse asking about Big Balls and what Big Balls was doing at work.
Who's Big Balls?
It's me.
That should be obvious.
Why do they call you Big Balls?
I just said it as my LinkedIn username.
Okay.
Well, people on LinkedIn take themselves like super seriously, and they're pretty adverse to risk. And I was like, well, I want to be neither of those things. So I said it, and honestly, I didn't even think anyone would notice.
Yeah.
So what do you
LinkedIn
do?
is so cringe.
What does Big Balls do?
Right now, I'm working on some payment computer stuff. So one of our initiatives is to root out fraud and waste. And to do that, we started looking at the payment computers. And as mentioned earlier, there is no accounting of what payments actually go to in the payment computer. So you look at a specific line item, like $20 million, and You're like, okay, well, what is this money going to? And for the majority of payment systems, it's like, well, we don't really know.
All right, so that clip's good for a couple of reasons. First off, the sort of cringe or trolling culture, or that it's just some kid who grew up online and they all have their anonymous names or whatever, and he was just punking people because everyone on LinkedIn is so serious about everything they do. Like, that's just like an interesting, like, I guess you call that like a generational or cultural part of this. But then well, what do you do? And then suddenly he gets real serious, right? It's not about his big balls anymore. It's suddenly like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm looking into the payment systems. And it turns out that we have these massive numbers, $20 million here. There's no receipts. Nobody knows what's going on. And this is what we are finding as fraud. So again, when they've been going after all the Doge people, because someone was named Big Balls and somebody was 21 years old and everything else, they never go, well, is what they've done illegal? Is what they've done immoral? Is what they've done corrupt or anything else? They're actually undoing the corruption. So what you end up seeing there, kind of really clever what he did. He got everyone to pay attention to his work because his name is Big Balls, and then it turns out he's doing some pretty good work. Here's a bit more on some of the craziness that they uncovered, because the government has been running a giant money laundering operation, your money, for many, many years, and it's coming to an end.
Yeah. There was a $4 billion COVID fund in the Department of Education, and there was no receipts required, so people could just draw down on it. And when people looked into it, this wasn't us, this was before us, they found that money was being used to rent out Caesar's Palace for parties, rent out stadiums, et cetera. And so the one change that DOGE made with the Department of Education is we had the simple requirement that if you draw down money, you must first upload a receipt. That was the only change that was made. You must upload your receipt. And upon doing so,
yes,
nobody drew down any money anymore.
Yes, but we didn't say that we'd check the receipt. You could send a fake receipt. You could send a picture of your dog. Anything. But as soon as we asked for anything at all, suddenly the requests were like, oh, we don't need it anymore.
One of the, I think, extreme examples of non-accountability in some cases has occurred at some of the small agencies. I think the Inter-American Foundation, IAF, is one of the agencies we visited where, they get $50 million a year, congressional money, to give grants. These are things like, alpaca farming in Peru, improving
That's a real example.
Yes, that's the real description. Improving the marketability of peas in Guatemala.
Really?
Fruit jam.
And it goes on and on and on, guys. But of course, the key part of that is now you really can see, when you hear it from the guys who are doing the uncovering, you can really see why the machine went crazy for that first month of Doge, and why they wanted everybody to turn against Elon, and why they wanted his Tesla charger stations burned down, and why they wanted you to think he was a Nazi, and they were excited that his companies were struggling a little bit and everything else, because he has uncovered their true evil. Their true evil was taking what was rightfully yours. Like, you should be pissed about this. It's your hard-earned money. They took it from you. They put it into a system that had no accountability whatsoever. They threw themselves parties in Vegas at Caesar's Palace. They spent money on alpaca farms in Peru and Guatemalan insane asylums. And it's like, that's not good. That's not what any of us signed up for. Elon has now spent the better part of the last half year dealing with this, cleaning it up, and now he's about to step away largely. I think he'll be always involved in some way or another, and go back to his businesses, which need him, right? I mean, Tesla alone, which we only think of the cars, but it's going to be the robots and much more. And the Optimus robot is probably going to be out by the end of the year, on top of how X has now merged with XAI. Like, there's so many things that this guy could and should be doing. Oh, and the Mars thing and everything else. But we should all be pissed about this, because the media framed it that those were all of the bad guys, and all they did were going, are there receipts? And I love the fact that Elon basically was like, we didn't even need a legit receipt. We just wanted some piece of paper. But once we asked for anything, all of the departments were suddenly like, oh, it turns out we don't need this cash anymore. So they have done the most beautiful, elegant thing that any of us could have asked. And as always, they're pointed as the bad guys, and the people who are doing the stealing and the cheating, and God knows what they were doing to take your money to put these Hamas people out on the streets, and the BLM people out on the streets, and the Antifa people out on the streets, and then install, using Soros DAs, install DAs who basically were allowing people to just have this rotating in and out of jail situation and everything else. But it continues. Here's one of the Doge guys talking about how he dropped out of Harvard. Like that really continues that really connects this to just everything that is happening right now.
Young folks of us have gotten hate mail, threats from reporters and the public alike. I think, speaking for myself, I dropped out of Harvard and came here to serve my country. And it's been unfortunate to see, lost friendships. Most of campus hates me now. But I think fundamentally, I hope people realize through conversations like this that reform is genuinely needed. And if there's one, I think this is important to say, if there's one group of people who really have a shot of success, it's the people here. They're up until 2 a.m. Monday through Sunday. Doge does not recognize weekends. We're working all the time.
What inspired you to drop out of Harvard to do this?
There's a lot of reform that's needed. I think the value of this and the impact here is so much more vast than anything you could learn in a classroom doing computer science.
And you guys are sleeping here, I'm hearing. You guys are up all night. You have this meeting at 10 o'clock every Wednesday?
We'll probably go back to work right after this.
Yeah.
You're going back to work after this?
Yes.
Right.
It's almost 11 o'clock.
So that's early.
It's early?
You see how great that is? And guys, it's true. It's true. When I was in DC a couple months ago, I was trying to get together with Elon, and every 2 hours he was texting me like, oh, maybe in a couple hours I'm at work. I got a text at 2 a.m. Okay, I just finished. I was sleeping. I didn't even see it till the next morning. Like these guys, think Elon again, I always point out the guy could literally be doing anything imaginable and things that you can't even imagine. That's what he could spend the rest of his life doing, and he's doing that. Those kids right there, you think that kid, or young man, you think he wanted to be hated by all his colleagues and students and friends at Harvard, and now he's hated by all of them? Although if you're hated by the people at Harvard, you're probably doing something right. This is an incredible thing that has happened here. It seems to be largely wrapping up at the moment, but I suspect that the work is gonna go on probably on the DL for quite some time. And to wrap this show up, I think what we've at least spent the last portion talking about is institutions that are no longer working. NPR, PBS, mainstream media, all of these USAID, and all of the things that the machine took money from us to fund that actively worked against us. And what we are going to have to do as we get out of this phase, out of the phase of the institutions failing us, the NIH failing us, et cetera, what we're going to have to do is figure out how to build new institutions. And burning things down is much easier than building things. Building things takes work, like actual work. It's easy to just, somebody built something, I can destroy it. Yeah, that's actually pretty easy. But building is not easy. And what we're going to have to do is rebuild almost everything, right? There's always a debate. How broken are these institutions, whatever they are, corporations, government institutions, and is there can you just hollow them out and rebuild them? Do they have to be, in essence, completely wiped away and then start fresh and everything else? But we're gonna have to do it across vectors of society. It's like Hollywood kind of will have to be rebuilt. Our education institutions will have to be rebuilt. Public health, all of these things. Here's David Sachs talking about how he's starting, he's one of the founders of it, a Trump-aligned social club in DC. It ain't cheap, but the point is to have a place for people to come who are like-minded, who want to help build the bridges into the new world.
We wanted a place to hang out, and the clubs that exist in Washington today have been around for decades. They're kind of old and stuffy. To the extent there are Republican clubs, they tend to be like more Bush-era Republicans as opposed to Trump-era Republicans. So we wanted to create something new, hipper, and Trump-aligned. Since I'm in the government, I can't be an owner, but I told him I'd be happy to be member number one. And so I, said, great, let's do it. And so we're creating a place for us to hang out. That's basically it. We want a place to go where you don't have to worry that the next person over at the bar is a fake news reporter or even a lobbyist or something like that who we don't know and we don't trust.
Got it.
So it's like any private club. You want to go somewhere that's highly curated. This private club movement's happening all over the country, not just Washington. But we're creating something that didn't exist before in D.C., which again is younger, hipper, Trump-aligned Republican
By the way, I should note that the private club thing is actually blowing up right now because as so much of our public institutions, our public everything has kind of crumbled. You go to a restaurant and people don't know how to behave anymore. You go on a plane and people are dressed like crazy and fighting with everybody. People that have some means are now spending more money to be in exclusive clubs. The club that they're creating, it is insanely expensive. I will not be a member. It's going to be $500,000 a year to go to this thing. But put that there, right? So this is not just for the average guy who's Trump aligned to go to these things. But people do this all the time. People have member clubs, people have exclusive restaurants, all of these things. That's just how the world works. You go to DC and what you find at all of these places, we've seen this. I took my team out to dinner at Charlie Palmer's restaurant. I think it's closed now. It was a steak joint about 2 years ago. And freaking Eric Swalwell was right there babbling right next to us, right? And it's like the lack of privacy, you could just see it's so obvious. There could be reporters there and operatives and everything else. So the movement to more private things, the more that the public stuff kind of crumbles, you make things that aren't safe for people, where just nobody has just like a basic level of decorum or any of those. People are going to go to these private things. So I'm not saying everyone has to join a $500,000 a year club, but we should all try to. This is why at the end of the day, it's your local community that matters. It's the people around you that matter, and the family and your local schools and all of that. That's the stuff that actually matters, because that's how you will actually rebuild all of these things. If you have not seen it, as I mentioned up top, my full interview with Frankie Valli, which is more of a love song to Frankie than anything else, that is up on YouTube and Rumble right now. We've got a post-game show, RubinReport.locals.com in 30 seconds. I thank you for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.
Konnichiwa! How are y'all feeling? Yay, boy! Did you know that China and Japan are actually different countries?